It is time for the Daily Beat on KBEY 103.9. How you doing? I'm Ben Shields, along with dailytrib.com news editor Dakota Morrissiey. Dakota, how's your week going so far?
Man, it's been awesome.
All right, so more stories to talk about this week, and it seems like you're a space reporter too. Not only are you the news editor, but the space reporter. I think this is our third space story that we've had, but some about Burnet County teaming up with Williamson County and some sort of designation. What's this?
Man, when you think of Burnet County, you're thinking of bluebonnets and longhorns and the lakes, but you should also kind of be thinking about space because we have an aerospace company, Firefly Aerospace here. They've been doing a lot of cool stuff. They just put a lander on the moon. They're building rockets. They're partnering up with NASA. They partner with SpaceX, now most recently partnering with Blue Origin. And all of that has built up to this moment where Burnet and Williamson County are considering creating something called the Central Texas Spaceport Development Corporation.
Wow, that's impressive you said that. That's a mouthful.
I had to practice before I came on.
You must have that memorized.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that mean?
Exactly. So what does that even mean? Well, it would mean that these counties would join forces and say, hey, we want to advocate for building out the space industry here. That means getting state government funding to improve the conditions that allow people to build spacecraft here or do research. So Firefly has its headquarters in Cedar Park in Williamson County, and then they have a 200-acre facility in Burnet County. So it would have to be a partnership for them to get all the benefits. But it's not just for Firefly. If they create this development corporation, it would be used to attract more companies here, potentially build out infrastructure like improving the roads, finding new water sources, facilitating growth so that these people could do even more business here, generate more jobs, stimulate the economy, and all that.
Now, Texas has been a hotbed for space, and you said this would be the fifth?
Well, there's only 5 of these.
Okay, so there's 5 and they're in Texas, right?
Yeah, and Texas only has 5 of these spaceport development corporations. There's one in Houston, there's one in South Texas, there's one out in West Texas. Actually, there's 2 in West Texas. So this would only be the 6th one, and it would be a big deal, and it would kind of solidify our area as a player in the space race that's happening right now.
All right, so read all about space, dailytrib.com/subscribe. All right, Dakota, so another story. Let's head to Granite Shoals. And this is something we've been talking about for quite a while, and this is trying to control the deer population.
Exactly. So like you said, Granite Shoals has been dealing with this kind of prolific white-tailed deer population that lives within city limits. There's been an ongoing argument. Some people say, hey, they're kind of like pets. We want them around. We like seeing the deer in the morning. You have another group saying, hey, they're kind of a nuisance. They're causing car accidents. They're eating all of our landscaping. And that's sort of come to a head where now they're talking about implementing a harvest program, which would consist of harvesters getting up in deer stands and shooting the deer using archery equipment. And this would be backed up by Texas Parks and Wildlife. They're pretty much set on this plan right now, and they're holding a town hall for everybody to kind of get their questions answered, learn more about it this Saturday.
I think another thing that you just said, they'd be supervised, right, by Texas Parks and Wildlife in the city?
This is recommended by Texas Parks and not recommended, but they're saying, hey, you have the data to back up doing something like this. I spoke with the leader of it's called the Granite Shoals Wildlife Advisory Committee. It's just a group of volunteers that sort of have dedicated themselves with they're sort of approved by the city to look into this. And they're saying there could be up to, 700 or more excess deer in the city. So we're talking about, that's a lot of animals. You think a deer's not like a raccoon. It's a pretty big thing.
Now, do they tell residents not to feed them?
It's highly recommended. Hey, please do not feed them. But it still happens, and they don't want to come down on people super hard for feeding deer on their private property. So it's definitely a delicate situation.
All right, dailytrib.com/subscribe to read about the deer in Granite Shoals. And so It's back. Leaf Fest is back in Llano. That's this weekend.
That's right.
Okay, so what is it? Is it going to be the full version, or have they sort of changed it? What's happening this year as far as Leaf?
Well, it started out, so Leaf, the Llano Earth Art Festival, where they build rock sculptures and sand things and patterns in the dirt, driftwood dragons, all right in the Llano River bed in the middle of town. It was supposed to not come back, and then they're like, well, what if we held a little one just to get together? And then they said yes, and said, well, what if the get together had some music, and what if we brought some vendors, and what? So then it just became
a full-blown Leaf.
A full-blown Leaf, except it's free.
Yeah.
So it used to, cost money to get in and all that. Now it's like donation based. From what I understand, there's going to be a lot of artists again, a lot of vendors, food. The streets are going to be closed off just like normal, but it's going to be free to get in.
It's sort of like when you say, I'll just eat one chip. Well, there's no such thing as eating just one chip. When it comes to Leaf, you can't just have one little thing. You got to make it the full-blown one, right?
I think people don't get that, like, for some of the people that do this stuff, it's like their whole focus of their year. Some of these artists, they're coming from the UK or from Portugal or something in some cases, all over the United States.
It's a big deal.
And for them, it's like the thing they look forward to every year. So it started out as the artist just saying, please, let's do it. And then it grew again, and it has a lot of support in the community as well. So I think it just kind of, revitalized it.
Didn't we have somebody from the area that won some world championship when it came to rock stacking or something like that a few months ago? Remember that story?
Yeah. I mean, we are the hub for this kind of art. I know it's not super famous, but the rock stacking contests and this earth art creation, Llano, in the last 10 years became the place for that. So just so you know, that's something that our little, dear capital of Texas is also known for, the rock stacking capital of the world.
All right. So that continues this week in the Llano. Leaf is back. All right. Yes. So we talked about space. We talked about deer and Granite Shoals. We talked about rocks and Llano. So I think we've got everything covered. All right, Dakota. So go see what Dakota and Elizabeth, what they've been working on this entire week. dailytrib.com/subscribe. This is The Daily Beat on KBEY 103.9.